Welcome to the studio review for React Part 1. We're going to be doing a studio called A Few of Your Favorite Recipes, where we will create a Create React app application, and we will create some components and do a little bit of CSS styling. So let's go ahead and just get started on this. The first thing that you need to do before you can actually really do any coding is to go find a recipe. And at like a food blog or something. And it's got to be somewhere where you can, right click and get the links for the images and, pick a recipe that has at least 5 ingredients, learn a little something about the author. We're going to need that kind of information. So I have found this blog, Ambitious Kitchen by Monique Foles. And we can come here and go to her About page and learn a bit about her. There's several photos of her. I'm going to use this one right here. And then I picked a recipe from the site, white chocolate blueberry oatmeal cookies, which look absolutely amazing. I might have to make them. And of course, you can jump to the recipe, which is always nice, not have to scroll so far. And then there's, all of the ingredients and everything, which you're going to need for this. You won't really need the instructions, just the ingredients. We're going to keep this pretty simple. The components we create, we're just going to hard code a little bit of information, and it's not going to be anything too terribly complex. Okay, so once you've done that and you kind of have, what it is that you think you want to use as your subject, we can get started setting up the app. So if you go to the repo that you should have cloned as part of doing your exercises for this chapter, you can go into the Part 1 directory. You'll notice that if I click on it, it just says Part 1/exercises. That's because right now exercises is the only subdirectory of Part 1. And so VS Code will combine it on one line like this. Now that's okay, because what we're going to do is create a project, create a React application that will create a directory that we will put in this Part 1 folder, and then both of them will show up here. So I'm going to open up my terminal and navigate into Part 1. And now that I'm in Part 1, I can use this command that they give us. The next thing they say to do is to create an app named Studio with this command, npx create React App Studio. So we can try that. All right, just like that. And it'll ask you if you want to proceed. You can say yes. And then it looked like it was starting to do it, but then it says, yeah, sorry, we created, you can't do this anymore because you had it supported globally. And so you need to install it locally. So that's probably just because of the way that I have been using this for a number of years. So we're just going to take, you can see there's no studio. It didn't create it, right? So let's just do npm I create React app. I stands for install. You can also say install. And we'll install it right here in this folder. And once that's been done first, then all we have to do is the other command. So I can bring that back up and say npx create React App Studio. And now it uses that local installation to create the application. And it'll take a second. So while it's doing that, let's go over and take a look at the next step. We're going to go into the source folder, and we're going to create a folder called components, which is where we want to put all of our component files and any corresponding CSS modules that we create. So as soon as that's available, we'll do that. It looks like the first one we're going to do here is description.js inside that components directory that we create. And then we'll be able to create a function, functional component with a component called recipe author. Okay, now we have it done, and you can see it tells you begin by typing CD Studio and npm start. That's because you can't run it unless you're actually inside the project that's just been created. So we want to navigate into that directory first, CD Studio, and now we can do npm start. And because we just started this from scratch, it should start directly without us needing to install any sort of dependencies. There we go. Okay. So this is the, you may have discovered this already. This is the kind of default content that's on this page whenever you start a new React application with Create React App. So we can go into those files and actually get rid of some of that content. We're just going to overwrite some of it. So if we go into Studio, we can see in the source folder, here's the CSS that they created. Let me get rid of this. And here is let's see. Yeah, here's the content that they're currently placing on the page right here from the app component, which is kind of the parent component for the entire application. What we're going to do is create additional components that we'll then place inside here and replace this content. So we can start as instructed by going to source here. I'm going to add, I want to add a directory, components. And then inside that, I want to add a new file called description.js. Okay, so it tells us here that we need to create a function called a recipe author. So let's do that. I say const recipe author is no arguments, fat arrow, and brackets, because it's going to have more than one line. Okay, you may have used a function keyword for this. That's totally fine. You can do it either way. This is the way that I do it professionally. So I tend to always write them as arrow functions stored in a const. Okay, so we come back over here. It tells us no parameters, and then 3 local variables: author link, author photo, and author name. Okay, so let author link and let author photo. I'm just going to declare them for now, and we'll find out more in a second about how to initialize them. Okay, here we go. So the link should contain a link to the recipe blog. That's easy enough. I can come in and just say, this is https://ambitiouskitchen.com. Okay. Now the author photo, here they tell us that we should include a valid URL that points to a photo of the author. So I'm going to go back over here where I had found this photo here. And I'm going to right click on it and say copy image address. That's going to give me a URL that points just to this image from their server. So I don't have to copy it and save it as part of a project. I can just go grab it from their server. Okay, and then same thing with author name. Well, not same thing. We're not going to do a link, but I do need to initialize it to her name. So let's do that. Monique Rolls. Okay, so we got that. Now it tells us that we want to return something like this. I can start with this. I'll use the little copy thing here. See if that works for us. Now, this is inside this function. We want to have a return statement here. I'm going to, just change out the information that needs to be here. Like if this is going to be the author photo, I can just put her name, Monique. Actually, I could just do the same thing the source is doing and use a little placeholder here, a React placeholder, and just say author name. And that way, whatever text is stored here is what will always be the alt for the picture, which is an accessibility thing. Okay, so we have classes here that we haven't created yet, but we've already got the tags and class name. You have to remember that because this JSX is technically a form of JavaScript, we can't use class because class is a reserved keyword in JavaScript. So we use class name instead. And then when Babel compiles everything and converts everything, it will work properly when it's transformed into HTML. Okay, so we have all of our links set here for all the data that we created. The blog name, I can give that a name here. If I can spell it. Ambitious Kitchen. So I'll just write it in title case there. Okay. And then let's see what's next. Okay. So we need to create the CSS, this CSS in a file. I'm going to go ahead and copy it. So I'll come here in the same directory. I'm just going to create another folder called description. Make sure it matches the file name .module.css. And then I'll paste in that CSS that they provided. Looks like it got a little bit wonky here with the indents. Okay. And there we have recipe author block, which sets the display to flex and justifies everything evenly from left to right. And then this one will control how the picture is displayed. So let's, I'm going to come back to this in just a second. So let's come here and look. So we've already referenced these, and the problem is, where are styles coming from, right? So we actually need to import that at the top. So we're going to say import styles from, and then we can just say description.module.css, and that should work. All right. Now we spun this up and I've created all of this, but right now, if we go back to the app, we're still seeing the initial content, right? So this is where we're going to have to actually, place it into the page. Oh, but we're not going to do that yet. All right. So recipe author is actually not intended to be placed into app. We're going to actually take this entire function and we're going to let this component compose another component, and that's going to be the one that we actually export. So let's come down here, and it tells us, so we want to add an import. Oh, by the way, if you did copy this and paste it in, just notice there's a typo, at least as of today, where there's no ending single quote here. And so you want to make sure that you've got that ending single quote, or else it's not good syntax. Okay, so we're going to import React. And the reason we're going to do that is because we want to create a class-based component, just so you can practice how to do that. Even though this is not really the direction that React has been heading in for the last few years, you will come across a lot of this from older code for sure if you work with React. So you need to understand how it works. So we'll add another class or a class that is another component. It's called recipe description. We're going to do it right here in the same file. So let's do that import first. Import React from React. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to worry about a file path. It's built in. So it automatically, you notice if I hover over it, it knows exactly where to find it in node modules. Okay, so we can come down here and create the class recipe description. And we want to extend react.component. Okay, and then we can have our class definition here. Now, if you did not, if you see sometimes in examples where it might just say extends component, that might be cases where instead of importing React here, they've actually deconstructed a component like this. And if you do it this way from React, then you don't need the React dot anymore. You can just say extends component. I'll leave it this way because the instructions tell you to how to do it the other way. It works either way as long as you have the right reference. So this way we're able to use it directly because it was deconstructed. Okay, so let's move on. What are we supposed to put inside this thing? Yes, so we want to have a render method. That's the way that you return JSX from a class component. And we need to have this inside, and then we'll customize the information. So inside here, I'm just going to say render and then give it a body and then return. Actually, I think this is on my clipboard already. Nope, it was not. Okay, so let me undo that. Return, and then I'm going to use a pair of brackets since this JSX is on multiple lines. And now I can probably fix these indents. Oh, good heavens. Okay, so yeah, sometimes when you paste things, it doesn't always directly translate with the indenting. And you have to fix it a little bit, and that's okay. It's worth it because you want to be able to visually keep track of things as it gets more complex. It's important to keep track of your indenting. Okay, so you can see here that we're already placing an instance of this recipe author component that we defined up here that's returning this information. So this JSX will essentially be put in here by virtue of us just calling the entire component. So all we need to do now is just change the title, and I can say white chocolate, blueberry, oatmeal. Oh my goodness, oatmeal cookies. And I put that in quotes because I was thinking of it as data. You know what? Actually, I'm thinking of it as data. Let's do this. Let's come up to the top of the file here and just create the data. And we'll just say, let recipe title. Because we're hard coding this, so we might as well just put a little bit of data up here as if we were pulling it in from somewhere, but we're not. And I'm also going to do this for the short description as well. And what we can do here is use these placeholders that work with JSX and just say recipe title. And then here I can do the same thing. I can grab this. All right. Recipe short description. And now that text will be placed here and placed here, but we've actually defined it up here. And let me go grab this quote, which I did take directly from the recipe page. Actually, I did not write this. What's not to love about chewy blueberry oatmeal cookies bursting with juicy blueberries in between layers of coconut and sweet white chocolate chunks? And I gotta say, they're absolutely correct. That sounds amazing. Okay, so we've got our data in here. Everything has been customized. Our class component here is, it has this render method that is returning this JSX, which is what we need for it to display properly. So the last thing here is that we need to export it. So we just come down here and say export default recipe description. And because this is the one we actually want to be able to access from outside this file. And typically, if you have a default, you're going to want to just do it after the fact at the bottom. That's pretty standard. But it is possible with classes and with functions where you've used a function keyword that you can actually put the export default in front of it and skip having to do this separate line. But this is pretty standard, so we can go for that. And then we'll come back over to directions just to make sure. Yes, so now they're telling us how to place this in the app.js file, the parent component app. So let's come in here. They're basically telling us, okay, go ahead and get rid of everything that's inside this div with class name app. And we're going to create our own div here. Let's come back and make sure we've got this right. Yeah. We're going to have this div, and then inside that is where we're going to place the recipe description. But what that means is we have to be able to import it. So import, and I can say recipe description, and look at that. Because I have already given that export statement in the bottom of the file, it was able to find it for me. And now I can just say, yep, that's the one, and then come down here and place it. And it's self-closing. So I just put that slash in there, and then we've got it. And we're not using any props at this stage. We're not, pulling any data here and passing it down to this. If we did want to make this reusable, that's how we would do it. But for today, we're keeping it simple. We're just, hard coding some things in here that is just based on one recipe, and that'll work for now. Okay, so now if we come over here to our app, we can see our information. We've got the title and the little short description there. We've got the picture and the name and the link. And all of that came out of the JSX that we defined here with the title and the short description. Then underneath that, the component that holds the rest of the JSX up here, which is the div that has the image and another div with the author aim and the link. Okay, so so far so good. So now we want to create another component. We want a recipe ingredients component, and we can put that right in with the other components in this file over here, in this directory, I should say. Okay, ingredients.js. All right. And we're going to create a function, recipe ingredients. And this is actually, this is a functional component. So I'm going to do const again and say recipe ingredients. Wow, I really can't type today. And say it equals, and then that arrow. Okay. And then in here is where we want to return the JSX that they're providing. We need an array that contains ingredients, and then we need something like this. So we'll take this and then we'll modify it. And we'll put it in here like this. Oops, I apparently did not copy it. Okay. Let me just do it from here. How's that? We have this, we just need to define our array of ingredients. So I could say, let ingredients equal. I'm having a hard time with the swapped vowels today, guys. Okay, let ingredients equal, and I'm going to make an array, and that will have, we'll just do these, kind of have these list items, take these one by one, hard coded, because we haven't learned how to loop yet. I mean, you do know how to do it, but we're going to focus on that next class. So for now, we're just going to do this, one by one, and then we will also need to create the CSS file that uses this, this particular class right here. So let's just get our ingredients here that are relevant to this particular recipe. And looks like, there we go. I'm just going to use the first 5 ingredients for now. Obviously, this thing has a whole lot of ingredients, but this will work for now. And then that will correspond to what they've already given us here with the first 5 elements from it. And nothing's on the page yet, right? Because we haven't actually placed it. We're just defining it right now. So let's go to the next step here. All right, we'll do our CSS, and then after that, we should be able to export it and then place it in the app component. So we just need this CSS right here for our new file. So again, we're going to go to this same folder here and add a file that's called ingredients.module.css to correspond with the ingredients.js file. And then I'll just paste in this class, which will have this alignment thing for the text for this. And then we'll come back over here and make sure we've, make sure we've exported this. We have not. Now, if you try to export default, I mentioned this earlier, if you try to export default and you define this as a const, it's not going to be happy. You can do that with a function keyword, but not when you set it up like this. So if you do it this way, then you just go down and you do it down here instead and just name it recipe ingredients. Like that, just like we did with the class one. And that'll work fine. So then we come over to app.js and we can add in our other one. Now let's make sure we understand where they want us to put it. They want us to put it below the recipe description. And that also means we're going to need to import it. Now here, before I did the import first and put it in here second, let's do it the other way around, where I do recipe ingredients. And notice that it's suggesting it to me. And if I hit tab to complete it, it automatically adds the import statement for me, which is faster. And also, real easy on, making sure you got that file path right, because it found it for you. So you can typically, as long as you've made sure that it already has the export statement in there correctly, you can come in here and do it this way and have it just add the import statement for you. Just keep an eye on it to make sure that everything actually does make sense. Sometimes things can be a lot out of whack. Okay, so now we look at the application and we have an error. So styles is not defined. Yes, that's true, because I forgot in here to add the import for the styles. So let's do that. Oh, I see. Man, sometimes I click on this and I don't mean to. What I meant to do was to click there so that I could get up here. Okay, import styles from, and then we can just say, you know, ingredients dot module dot CSS. And there we go. Now it's happy. So we come back, lost my mouse over here. And now we can see that we've got this image, all the stuff that was from before, and now we have the recipe ingredients below it. Okay, that was kind of the second big part. Now there's one more. We're going to do a recipe photo component. So we're going to create another file in components here and call it photos.js. And we will have, let me back over here. Yeah, a new function called recipe photo, which is going to be another component that's going to return JSX here. So let me just do this. All right, and then we'll just make sure we get the right information in there. Okay, so we can say const recipe photo equals, and we're not using props yet, so we're just going to have no arguments, parameters, and then we just need to return that image JSX, which I can't remember if I actually put it on my clipboard. Here we go. And we don't need parentheses here because it's just a single line of JSX. So we can just do like this, and that'll be enough. So let's just customize this. We'll get our URL. If I come over here to the page where the recipe is, I can copy this URL. Oh, I'm sorry, this is for the photo. Yeah, my bad. Okay, let's go all the way back to the top. I think that's the one that I chose, was this first one. So I will say copy image address, and this is going to link it directly from their server. And then I'll say, you know, blueberry white chocolate deliciousness. I really should put the proper name or something, but that's okay. And then it's importing this image updates. Now, we don't need to create a separate file for this because this already actually exists in the description CSS file. So we really just need this import statement, and we can go ahead and get it from there. And then that image updates, because if we go over to description.module.css, you can see right there, we've got the image updates class. So we are importing that, it's available. And now all I have to do is export this, export default recipe photo. And then we can come over to app.js, and it tells us here to add it above the other two, but we need to have the other two in a separate div. So what we really want to do here is do like this, and then we can do our recipe photo. And notice that it added the import for me. And then I'm just going to take this entire thing and bump it up here and nudge it over. And now you can see that this and the div here that that contain both of these are all children of this particular div. And the reason that they're doing this is because of the way that they have defined styling for these things, so that it puts them either, you know, on top of each other or next to each other because of the way that it's done. So this should work. Let's take a look. And it's on top of it instead of next to it. So this is where we're going to actually add another class. And they want us this time to put it in app.css. Now, what's interesting about that is that app.css is a global file. Anything you put in here, you don't have to like explicitly import it into any of your modules. It just automatically will find it there. So we can go ahead and add the class name equals recipe photo block here without having to actually do that. Oops, let me go back and make sure I know which div they want that on. Okay, they want it to the div that contains the recipe photo and the other div. So this is what I'm talking about. They're using these divs to control this. Now, first we have to go, I didn't actually do this part yet. We'll come down here. Sorry, guys. And add that CSS. So now this is in the global file. And most of the stuff up here was for the default stuff. I mean, you could even take all of this out really if you want to, because we're not using it anymore. We replaced all of that content. But then we can come back over to here and place recipe photo block onto this div. So class name equals recipe photo block. And that's now going to define it differently so that it'll place these side by side instead of on top of each other. We go back, now we see we have this one over on the left, this one on the right, and it looks, you know, halfway decent. And then you can just, you know, follow the usual instructions here of just making sure that your own work has been pushed to your copy of the repo on GitHub, and then you submit that link on Canvas. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. I will see you in the next one.